Shalom, family. It's good to see everybody here. Um, we're going to get deep into what's going on with naturalization, the people that were supposed to be uh, here legally, like they went through all the steps to become a citizen. Well, look like that is going to be taken away. And I do have a video that I'm going to have y'all watch. And, you can hear what Donald Trump is saying about what's going on. And the thing is, it is kind of sick, but they seem to be very gleeful about that alligator Alcatraz. It's like they're getting off on, but you know what? They've always been like that, right? They've always gotten off on doing rotten things to us. So why would they stop now? They're just being true to themselves, right? That's their real nature. And Ron DeSantis is talking. It's like they are so happy they got this facility to jail people up, and they're going to be bringing people from all over the country there and putting folks in there, and they're like, oh, there's no way out. If you get out, you'll be eaten by an alligator and all that stuff. Yeah, that is so barbaric. Why not just deport them back? you know but there's always an agenda behind what they do. It's what they're not saying. That's what you need to be concerned about. That's usually, the usual pattern of these folks. So I got a new song that y'all haven't heard before. I'm going to play that, and then we'll get into um, what they're trying to do. Like they're trying to denaturalize people out of their citizenship. All right, so let me show, because this bothered one of the illegals that was on my live stream over the weekend. So you know me, I'm going to rub it in. You know me, I'm going to rub it in. Okay. Okay, so this song is called The Hebrew Sun. And you'll see. This is not about Yahushai. This is about a Hebrew man that always felt like he was nothing because people made him feel that way. And then he learned about who he was, and it was life-changing for him when he learned, no, I'm not a nothing. I really am somebody. I'm chosen. So let me play it for you, and then I'll be right back and we'll really get into everything.
Oh yeah, I was lost, but now I know who I am. I'm the Hebrew Sun. I wander through the shadows, looking for the light. Taught to hate my own reflection, caught in lies so tight. But the book opened up and I saw my name. The truth came rushing like a holy flame. I'm not a slave, I'm a son of a king. Judah runs in my blood, I was born to sing. The covenant lives in the breath I breathe. Yes, hand pulled me out, now I believe. Oh, I am the Hebrew son, from the tribe where the lion comes from. You tried to strip my name, but I overcome. The Most High called me by his tribe. I am the Hebrew son. My soul remembers where I come from. A chosen light under your sun. No weapon form can make me run. They told me I was nothing, just another name. But my father wrote my story before I ever came. They hit my crown, tried to blind my eyes, but the Ruach whispered you were born to rise. Do not rise. Zion is calling, dry bones are walking. I hear the chauffeur sound in the night. The sun is rising, a new day dawning. We walk in power, dressed in light. I am the Hebrew son, no more hiding, I won't run. Yeah, has written my song, and to his arms I belong. Call me by my name, I am not the same. I'm the Hebrew son, the battle's already won. I was laced from a white stone, and in the stone a new name.
Okay, y'all, that was it. I love this guy's voice. He almost reminds me of Music Soul Child. It's just the way he sings and carries the song just kind of reminds me of that. He's got a wonderful voice. He really does. So, y'all, let's get into the story that we came for. All right. So I put some videos together. Okay, here we go. Okay. So, what they're pretty much saying, and we know they're not going to go by, they'll tell you one thing and do another. So, what they're saying is if there are people that became naturalized citizens and along the way they committed a crime or they straight up lied and became a citizen and it didn't get caught until now, those people will be denaturalized. That's what they're saying. But didn't they say that about ICE being out there? They were only going to grab the criminals, and we see they're not doing that at all. They're going to people's jobs, they're going on farms, they're going in hospitals and schools, and a lot of those people did not commit any felonies. Well, they're criminals automatically for being here illegally, but they're saying a crime committed after they became naturalized citizens or they lied on their application and it didn't get caught until later. That's the people they were going to focus on. But y'all don't hold your breath because those of you that even are naturalized, they're going to come after you too because they already pulled that we're only going after the felons with ICE currently out on the streets. And you see they're grabbing everybody and they're going to do the same thing in this instance. They're just telling you that, that because it just sounds good if they're only going after the bad guys, but we know they're going to be going after anybody they can grab. So, anyway, let's get started. I'm going to play this video so you can hear the responses from people about this, plus Donald Trump as well. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you, Special Child and Brother Sly. I'm glad you enjoyed the song. Thank you so much. And thank you, Lisa Gibson and Judah Mateo. Thank you. Thank you for your responses. Okay. All right, y'all, let's get started.
officially puts into effect one of the most restrictive citizenship policies in U.S. history. The Department of Justice is now actively moving forward with stripping certain Americans of their citizenship. According to an official memo released in June, the Department of Justice is instructing its attorneys to prioritize cases involving the revocation of naturalized citizens, especially those with certain criminal records. The policy primarily targets non-US born citizens, 25 million of whom will have been naturalized by 2023. The new policy significantly expands the range of crimes that can lead to the loss of citizenship, including violations of national security, fraud against individuals or the government, such as Paycheck Protection Program loan fraud and health insurance fraud. This unprecedented policy is now official, and the futures of millions of naturalized citizens are hanging by a thread.
The Justice Department is now aggressively prioritizing efforts to strip naturalized U.S. citizens of their citizenship. NPR's Jacqueline Diaz reports the DOJ is focused on cases where naturalized American citizens commit certain crimes.
The new stance towards naturalized citizens who commit crimes is laid out in a memo from the Justice Department to its Civil Division employees. Those crimes could include anything from national security incidents to cases of fraud, according to the memo. According to 2023 data, 25 million immigrants are naturalized U.S. citizens. Denaturalization has existed for decades and was used widely to deport citizens accused of being communists during the 1950s. Some immigration attorneys have expressed concerns over this expanded denaturalization effort, questioning whether it is constitutional and how the families of naturalized citizens would be impacted. Jacqueline Diaz, NPR News.
Breaking news. The Department of Justice announces plans to prioritize cases to revoke U.S. citizenship. This was just announced today, but the Justice Department is actively prioritizing efforts to denaturalize U.S. citizens. This is specifically citizens involved in certain crimes. This is all based on a memo that was leaked on June 11, 2025. At least one U.S. citizen was already denaturalized last week. A UK national became a U.S. citizen a few years ago, but was convicted of certain crimes involving children that happened before he became a citizen but never disclosed, already lost his U.S. citizenship. Denaturalization was used heavily in the 40s and the 50s during the McCarthy era. If you lied about your criminal convictions, this new effort will get your U.S. citizenship revoked. Crazy thing about this, they're going to pursue this for civil proceedings. It means people will not be entitled to an attorney. This is happening. Stay tuned and follow me for daily updates.
While everyone was distracted by looming war with Iran and Republican infighting in the Senate, Trump's Department of Justice just announced that they're going to prioritize cases to deport citizens. Specifically, they're planning to do something that is totally unprecedented in American law, which is denaturalize people who have citizenship. The craziest part is they're trying to find a way to go after these people without giving them a right to legal representation. If they pursued these cases through the criminal system, which would make sense because they've claimed that they're only going after the worst of the worst criminals, then all of the defendants would be entitled to legal representation. But the Department of Justice says that they want to bring these lawsuits through civil litigation, which means that no one has the right to an attorney and the burden of proof is much, much lower. The idea that they're going to try and revoke people's citizenship rights that they have been rightfully endowed with without giving them a full day in court is basically like spitting in the face of the Constitution. And the Trump administration has made it clear that this is yet another tactic to try to silence people who publicly disagree with him. Trump has already been abusing the law against international students, nonprofit organizations, protesters, anyone who's willing to publicly disagree with him. But this is the action of a dictator who doesn't believe in free speech, who wants people to be afraid, and who doesn't believe in basic human rights.
They are going to start revoking citizenship for naturalized citizens. Now, this is from a DOJ memo from June 11th, and we're going to go through it just a little bit, but there's three key points that I really want to bring up here. First of all, this is all going to be done in civil court, meaning there's no constitutional right or protection that guarantees you the right to an attorney, and the court will not appoint one. In addition, being in civil court, the burden of proof is lower, meaning that the government should have a much easier time proving the elements that it needs to in order to revoke somebody's citizenship. Second, the statute does not protect the children and spouses of naturalized citizens, meaning if you are not a legal citizen, but you are here legally because of your parent or your spouse being a naturalized citizen, if they lose their citizenship, you have to go as well. And third, we are already starting to see this, but this is very likely going to be used to target the politically engaged immigrant left. And they're already starting with Zohran Mamdani.
This Congressman Andy Ogles, he wants the Attorney General Bondi to explore denaturalization proceedings because he thinks Mamdani could have misrepresented or concealed material support for terrorism based on rap lyrics he wrote in 2017. Does President Trump think this is a worthwhile use of the Attorney General's time?
Well, I'll let the president speak to that. I have not seen those claims, but surely if they are true, it's something that should be investigated.
And if you pay attention to the language that they use in that clip, they're talking about what is typically known as naturalization fraud, where you conceal something or hide information from the government in your application and processing for naturalization. And if they find out about it later that you lied, they can absolutely come back and revoke your citizenship. But based on the DOJ's memo, they're looking to do far more than what the statute permits them to do. Now, from the DOJ's memo itself, the Civil Division shall prioritize and maximally pursue denaturalization in all cases permitted by law and supported by the evidence. And they cite to 8 U.S.C. 1451 that we just looked at. That is going to be sweeping. They're not looking for small opportunities. They're looking to maximally pursue denaturalization. Now, like I said, 1451 deals with naturalization fraud. It typically doesn't seem like it would include anything that occurs after the naturalization has occurred. And yet this list of priority areas that the DOJ wants the Civil Division to look for opportunities for denaturalization proceedings appear to include a number of things that could be well after naturalization and would be simply just criminal or civil in nature that wouldn't normally rise to the level of denaturalizing somebody. But in particular, 8 gives me significant concern because of the amount of time that Trump and the rest of the people on the right have talked about how immigration under Biden and Obama was illegitimate. It was part of government corruption. They say that this was fraud. They've talked about bringing immigrants in and giving them green cards so they could vote for Democrats. My concern is that they're going to take people who were legally permitted at various points and find excuses to say they were only admitted because of government corruption or fraud. And then number 9 and 10 are very much just like catch-all, carte blanche, kind of whatever the hell we feel like terms. So there you go. If you want a more in-depth legal analysis, feel free to drop a comment. Let me know if there's enough support. I will go through and we'll actually break down the statute in more detail. But otherwise, I appreciate everybody's comments, likes, and shares. And don't forget to follow for more.
The Department of Justice just announced that they're going to start revoking citizenship for anybody who became an American citizen and has a criminal record. Let me break this down for you as fast and simple as possible. This is not going to affect anybody that was born here in the United States. So far, the Department of Justice is saying that it's for anybody who became an American citizen and committed major crimes after receiving their citizenship. And as of right now, it's something major, not something small like a DUI. One of the things that a lot of people need to understand as well is that there's 2 types of courts. There's a criminal court and a civil court. Criminal court, you're required to get a lawyer, and the government will provide you a lawyer if you cannot afford one. Civil court, if you cannot afford a lawyer, then you don't get a lawyer. So the Department of Justice is using civil court when they will try to deneutralize a person because they know that most people cannot afford a lawyer to go against them. And that's one of their tactics to guarantee that you will be deneutralized if they come after you. We already have one person who was deneutralized on June 13 of 2025, just a few weeks ago. Elliot Duke. He was born in the UK and served in the United States military and got his American citizenship. However, he committed some atrocious crimes. Not only did he lie when he became an American citizen and said he had no prior criminal record in the country that he's from, but that criminal record that he had in the UK, he continued that nasty stuff in the United States. This man was receiving and distributing child sexual abuse material. And now Duke did have a lawyer to try to fight this, but because of his crimes and how atrocious they were, he lost, and he lost his citizenship in the United States. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.
Okay, so here's what just happened that should be screaming across every headline. The Trump administration just issued a memo to the Department of Justice telling them to start prioritizing civil denaturalization. And that means revoking citizenship from naturalized Americans, people who became citizens legally, if the government believes that they got that citizenship fraudulently or pose a security threat. And sure, the memo claims that this is only for the worst of the worst, like war criminals, terrorists, gang members, and has been done historically. And that sounds fair in theory, but here's the catch. Once a naturalized citizen is targeted for civil denaturalization, they don't get a public defender. It's not a criminal case. You're just stripped of your citizenship in a civil court with no automatic right to a lawyer. And this opens the door to some seriously dangerous territory, because now the executive branch, meaning Trump's DOJ, gets to decide who counts as a fraudulent citizen. And once you're denaturalized, guess what? You're deportable. So this raises huge constitutional concerns. Who decides what counts as fraud? What counts as a threat? Are certain communities, especially immigrants of color, going to be disproportionately targeted? And what happened to due process? And let's not forget that citizenship is supposed to be the final stop in the immigration journey. You don't just undo it like an Amazon return. So when you zoom out, this is part of a pattern. Trump's already signed executive orders targeting birthright citizenship, and now this. So we're watching the erosion of what citizenship means in real time. So if you're thinking, well, this doesn't affect me, you should ask yourself, if the government can take someone else's citizenship, what makes yours safe? So you should call your representatives, ask them where they stand, and if you're a naturalized citizen or you love someone who is, this isn't just politics, this is your life. Citizenship is supposed to be permanent.
Something that each and every one of us should have woke up and paid attention to was this. The Trump administration just issued a memo to the Department of Justice to prioritize
individuals convicted of serious crimes. That means U.S. citizenship could be ripped away from those involved in everything from war crimes to COVID loan fraud, human trafficking, and even gang activities. It's a major shift. Anyone who's been involved in national security threats, drug cartels, or serious fraud could face having their citizenship revoked. Even those who lied about their past criminal activity during their naturalization process are now in the DOJ's crosshairs. This move targets naturalized citizens who haven't been truthful or are linked to major criminal organizations. The DOJ isn't playing games. If you've committed a crime like PPP loan fraud or human trafficking, don't think your citizenship is safe. So what do you think? Should these criminals lose their citizenship, or is this overreach? Let's talk about it in the comments below.
It's known as Alligator Alcatraz, which is very appropriate because I looked outside and it's not a place I want to go hiking anytime soon. But very soon this facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland, and the only way out is really deportation. And a lot of these people are self-deporting back to their country where they came from. Quite a few. We're amazed at actually the number.
Right here in this location, we'll have about 3,000 beds. Other location will have another 2,000 beds that will allow us to bring individuals across the country that we are bringing in and incarcerating for violating our laws, and immediately get them out of the country as soon as we possibly can.
And when you walk into the processing, the president and I, Secretary Nunn, Kevin Guthrie, walk through that initial intake, the first thing you see is information on how to go home on your own. Why would you want to come through Alligator Alcatraz if you can just go home on your own? I think a lot of people are going to make that decision. So you're going to have a lot of deportations that are going to be done by the administration, but I think you're going to have a lot of voluntary as well. So this is a force multiplier for the president's effort.
Okay, y'all. So, I really personally think all naturalized people are in trouble. Now, unfortunately, Loretta, you get on my nerve. So anyway, unfortunately, there are a lot of videos coming out saying that Black Americans, and yes, they're saying Black Americans. So if you don't like that, I'm sorry, but that's what's being said on the videos, are at risk. We absolutely are not, ladies and gentlemen. We are not at risk because we are citizens. We've been citizens since 1868. Don't let no immigrant that's getting their ass kicked out of here tell you that we're leaving too. That is absolutely not true. Nor has Donald Trump said anybody born as a descendant of slavery is also at risk. He's never said that. The only language he used were illegal immigrants, right? He never said nothing about descendants of slaves are at risk. So please just dismiss all of that stuff about us being at risk. Another thing that you should understand, since the Constitution was written, nothing has ever been removed from it. Nothing, because that whole process is extremely difficult. You can't just strike up an executive order and get us removed, right? And you can't even do that with the immigrants. That's why Donald Trump went to the Supreme Court to get that ruling, because he can't just write up an executive order and get these immigrants out of here. He had to go to the Supreme Court. So we are in the Constitution. It would be very difficult. And like I said, just look at the history of the Constitution. Nothing has been removed from it ever. All right. And these people, just chalk it up to this, y'all. These people are butt sore because we are citizens and we're not affected by what's going on with them. And you even heard that from the Somali woman. Her insight was, well, if I gotta go, the rest of y'all need to go. No, it doesn't work that way. Just because you don't like us, that does not mean that's cause or reason for we, as citizens, descendants of slaves, to be removed. That's not a legitimate reason. So that's what the immigrants are getting on video saying, disregarded. Even some of, unfortunately, Americans are jumping on that bandwagon. Reading really is fundamental, and apparently hearing is fundamental too, because not once in anything Donald Trump said where it indicated that he was going after descendants of slaves. What he did say were the 14th Amendment applied only to descendants of slaves and their offspring. Okay. That's the only thing he has clearly said. All this other stuff about we're getting kicked out too, it's these folks just adding all of that in. All right. They're the ones doing this. So don't pay attention to it, because they're upset and they're trying to get a rise out of us. And my answer to that is, don't let them have it. Don't let them have it, y'all. Seriously. So it's not anything that's going to impact us, but it will impact them. This is why today you're hearing about naturalized citizens are about to get kicked out in here. It still did not say anywhere where it's descendants of slaves. Pay attention. Pay attention. For real. Grace P, thank you so much for the super sticker and your support for my channel. Thank you so much. Mhm. You know, what the problem that I notice with a lot of these immigrants when they do videos, they skip over a lot of things. And that's why a lot of things they say don't make any sense. It has no logic. And when you go back and listen to them, they'll skip over a lot of our history to make a point, or they'll dismiss a lot of our history to make a point. I notice they heavily do that, these immigrant groups. That's why whenever you hear videos from them, you got to really put it in the perspective, that it really is in, and kind of dismiss this point of view that's just coming from the top of their head. And it's painfully obvious, as long as they've been in this country, the country they claim they don't want to leave, and out in these streets crying and wailing when ICE is pulling them out. You notice they don't spend very much time trying to learn the history of the country they're in. Damn near all of them are very ignorant of the history. That's one thing I am noticing. And plus, many of them are implying that Donald Trump can do an executive order to get us out of here. That is not true. That is not true. Okay, Donald Trump would have to do a lot of things to get us a lot more than what he's doing when it comes down to these folks. But again, it's nothing we need to be concerned about because he has not directed any of that towards us. Yeah, you're right, Lisa Gibson. Some of these people been in the country 30 and 40 years and can't speak a lick of English because, they stay within their communities where they can get by speaking just their language and not a lot of English. Well, yeah, there are US citizens. Some of them been in the country probably even 40 years or more. But US citizens, like if you are a US citizen, no, especially if you're a really, if you are a descendant of slaves, you have nothing to worry about. Now, according to what they're saying about US citizens that are naturalized, they are claiming, and I kind of say that with a grain of salt because we see a whole different scenario out on these streets with ICE. ICE is grabbing up everybody, you know, and they're claiming they're going after criminals only, gang members. You heard what they said on the video, right? But I'm just saying, just be careful because they'll say one thing and do another. It is very common for these people to do that. But if you have not committed a crime, and let's say you are um, here and you're naturalized, you're supposed to be safe. hmm I mean, look, y'all, and let's say they were trying to get all of them out. It's going to take some time. They estimate 25 million immigrants in the country. It's going to take some time, even if you had to get all of them out. You know how much time that's going to take? You're not going to be able to get these people out in no year. It may take several years to get them all out. hmm Yeah, I mean, and look, some Americans have gotten caught up in the ICE raids, and some were taken until they were able to identify them, as a descendant of slaves. They were able to figure it out and let those people go. So yes, some Americans have gotten caught up in ICE raids, but they, once they were investigated, they were let go. But it hasn't been that many. Most of the ones they're taking are, what they are saying they're being racially profiled. They talk to these people, they got accents, and they're looking at them, and yeah, that's how they're getting taken. That's how they're getting taken. And y'all, like I said, the Africans are now trying to cosplay us. They're trying to blend in and say they're Black Americans so that they don't get deported, but I don't see how Africans can do that because number one, y'all look very different from us. Hamites look very different from us. And number two, y'all got a very pronounced accent. I mean, that African accent, you can hear that mess a mile away and recognize it. I'm just saying, I don't know how y'all gonna get away with that. Yeah, but you know what, y'all stay safe. And I don't want y'all to worry, especially especially if you're a descendant of slaves. Don't worry about this stuff. Don't worry about it, because you know, a lot of times they can trace your parents, your grandparents, and they know. They know. Yeah, America's gonna look like a law y'all, after Donald Trump gets finished, America's gonna look like a very different place without all these people here. It really is. It's gonna start looking very different in America, and it's gonna have a different feel to it as well. Yeah. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna go ahead and conclude. I've got um a few more lives that I want to do. What's being debated, one that's really trending, what's being debated is a lot of people are saying, how could this federal government go after Diddy with 5 charges and Donald Trump got 34 charges and he didn't have to go to jail? And that's being heavily debated now. And I can understand, you know, Donald Trump really should have went to jail. 34, how many people do you know got 34 convictions and they can still walk around free? Shoot, the average man in our community, he can get 2 convictions and be locked up in a prison. But you got 34 and you're still free? Yeah, you know? So I can understand how that's coming up, you know, but you got to look at it for what it is. Let's be real. Systemic racism is a real thing in America. Diddy is a melanated man. Okay. And Donald Trump is a white man. And we have seen white men go into a courtroom guilty as hell and they walk out free. We have all seen it. You know? So Donald Trump is what I call a product of white privilege and systemic racism. So we may get to that sometime this week. But that is true. I do agree with that. And a lot of people are raising that issue. Why is Donald Trump free and Diddy had to, you know, go through what he went through? And Donald Trump, we already know he was with Jeffrey Epstein, underage girls, you know, but he's not being touched. Yep, still got elected. That's right, T of Yah. You damn right about that. Yeah, you're right, Derek. The Bible does say it would be like that. Yeah, you know, they have put on a pair of blinders when it's somebody like Donald Trump. So that's very true. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we know. That's right, mental OG. They are told they're not guilty. And look, look at how they talk to us today. They act like they're guilt-free from all of the history of slavery. I mean, they really do. Although to this very day, they are beneficiaries and they never stop being a beneficiary up in this country when it comes down to that. So, oh, well, you know, it's food for thought, something to think about. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead conclude. I thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all of the support. Fred Williams, one of my subscribers, sent me a Zelle. I thank you for that, Fred. And all of the people that sent me Cash Apps, PayPal, GoFundMe, thank you. Um, you know, I would do a separate video, but y'all run for them videos, so I won't do it. So I'll just say thank you. That's what I'll do. I'll say thank you. Y'all have a wonderful day. Shalom, family.